Oh, he left his desk, of course. There you are. All right, Patrick, you want to go?
I'm back.
Well, at least you're
All right,
not
you guys.
out of the garage.
Yeah, I thought I should do this a little bit better. We had a Sarpy County the board for the chamber, and I first instinct was to do it in my garage. So the lighting was goofy and kind of creepy, and it went well. So anyway, new setting, just in the living room, so we won't have any weird lighting in here. Well, let's go ahead and get the meeting started. This is the Sarpy County Government Affairs Committee for April 1st, 2020. And this is our first Zoom meeting, I think. So did anybody get a chance to review minutes or anything like that? Or do we need to do that at all?
Hey, can I get everybody to put their phone on, on mute until they're ready to speak? We're getting a lot of feedback here.
Okay.
So I'll stick mine on mute as well. So if we can, there we go. Oh, much better. Okay, go ahead, Pat. We're gonna be back here.
Oh, we're just getting ready to get going on our meeting for April 1st, 2020. Did anybody get every chance to review minutes from last month? Or do we need to skip? Can we skip that?
We didn't send those out. Debbie did get them done, but we're going to hold off because we can't really vote on them. We don't have any policy set in place yet for that.
All right. Well, then let's go ahead and do you want to go ahead and get started, Karen, with the chamber update?
Sure, I'd be happy to. We just scheduled with Congressman Don Bacon, April 6th at 10 a.m. We're going to do a live event. Well, live via what we're doing here. We haven't decided if that's going to be a Facebook Live or if that will be a Zoom type situation. We are starting to do all of our events online. April 7th, we have a membership event. It's kind of a how to use your chamber membership. We have a how to use our website on the 9th. The 28th, we're doing our women's group, Goal Setter. Our other events have been postponed, but you will see those starting to come back live. We're just trying to schedule times. I will, let me see if I can do a share screen real quick. We do have a COVID page up. Let me see. Doesn't look like it's gonna let me. If you go to the front of our website, there is a banner that said COVID-19 kind of in the middle of our screen. There's a lot of resources for businesses. If you guys have any great information you think would be applicable for that page, send that to us. We'll continue to post stuff there. All of our groups are up and running like this one. We did reinvigorate our Sarpy Chamber Foundation. We are taking funds for small businesses. At this point, we have not had a ton of people ask us for money or say that they're in need, but I do feel in 60 days we will see that need happen. We did create a gift card purchasing program. One of the things that we found with the small businesses is they can sell gift cards, but they don't have a way to sell them online. So if you want to buy a gift card to a business that doesn't have the ability to sell online and they're a Sarpy Chamber member, you can buy that gift card through us. So we were able to navigate that challenge. Myself and Kevin with the Bellevue Chamber are on weekly chamber calls. We have a state call, we have a metro call, and then we also have a call with Bellevue, Papillion, Plattsmouth, and Offutt Air Force Base every Friday, and keeping those tight connections. One of great news, we had Congressman Don Bacon's office had reached out to Mayor Kindig. He called me. Patriarch Distillery has shifted gears and now they're making sanitizer for first responders, but they didn't have any bottles. And Quinn in our office, I tasked him with finding it, and he was able to get 1,068 donated spray bottles. And then they had so much sanitizer that they needed jugs. And so we were able to acquire over 3,000 jugs of bottles for refill for those sanitizer bottles. So that's kind of the mode we're in is, you know, as needs are coming up, we're just trying to backfill them. And that's kind of where the gift card situation come from, is because Mayor Black had a call with us, making sure that we were, you know, looking at some of these issues. And, you know, we're really excited about being able to come up with some solutions where other people don't know where to go. So that is my current update. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Nope.
All right.
That covers the small business one too?
Well, I think I guess that was part of the other thing I alluded to it. We don't have a lot of people calling. The chamber has been calling every single member in the Sarpy chamber, and we're not getting a lot of people asking for help in any way. And so if you guys are hearing that a business needs some assistance, or, you know, I was in a urgent care and I remember that I walked in and the guy's like, oh, this is going to bankrupt me, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, why aren't you doing curbside? And now all of a sudden he's doing, you know, they're doing curbside visits at the urgent care and stuff. And so sometimes it just takes, you know, a group of us to kind of think outside the box for these solutions. And so please send those people us. I can't guarantee we have a solution, but we're going to do our best to try to find those solutions. So, you know, we've had good success with our calls at this point. We do have a bit of a concern, the new payroll guarantee that's come out includes every single small business and nonprofit except for chambers of commerce. So we feel like we're pretty financially, you know, situated right now, but depending on how long we're trying to flatten this curve, it could potentially hinder our financial stability, not being able to do any fundraisers. So we'll keep our eye on that, and hopefully the U.S. Chamber can maybe try to get some things changed for us. So, but we're looking good right now. So
Good.
that's it.
All right.
Thank you, Patrick.
You're welcome. The next thing we have on our agenda are legislative updates. There's not really a lot of action going on with general affairs. That's the one that I cover. Angie, do you have anything that you'd like to report on? No? Sue, is there anything, we might as well just jump into the legislative stuff then. What's happening in down in Lincoln right now?
So the legislature is postponed right now. And so we're just working hard on constituent concerns and trying to keep people updated. Before we left, I think it was just last week, we passed emergency appropriations for the governor. And so we also sent the governor some of the issues that we thought might need to be addressed through executive order, and he's addressed some of those, like lifting the open meeting law and addressing evictions. So, the many major policy change that happens now is going to happen through executive order until we meet again. And the speaker has said it depends on when it's safe to meet again, and that he also would allow a 2-week window before elections. So it would be, if it's not safe to come before 2 weeks out of the election, it'll be after the election before we meet again. So that's where we are. If you have questions or concerns, feel free to email me or give me a call. We're trying to keep a list of links on our website, our legislative website as well, so that people have another place to access resources.
So this session is essentially over then, correct? It ends on April
Well, I
23rd.
don't know if we'll, meet again in late May. The budget is due June 30th. So I think there might be some effort, if it's at all possible, to try to meet a few days before June 30th, if possible, depending on how things go.
Okay. All right.
Senator Andy Rickley from Papillion La Vista. So several priorities went unaddressed, including property tax relief. Do you think at this point, Senator, that a special session is likely? I mean, what's your...
So I haven't heard discussions about a special session yet. I do think that there's right now kind of an ongoing debate on the extent to which the property tax bill would be one of those urgent issues we would need to make sure we addressed if we came back for a few days or not. So some people feel it is still an urgent issue to be addressed. Others are concerned about what this crisis will do to our finances and whether we could still afford to do something like that again. So when we left, the speaker basically said, when we come back, he expects us to hopefully have, I think, 13 days or so. So he was going to do 2 full weeks plus a few days and go into late nights if necessary to get as much done as possible. And he said it would be any bills that were considered necessary to be passed. And it was up to him to determine what was necessary to be passed. So I think that's probably an issue of debate still, is what's happening with that property tax bill. I imagine there will be some serious pressure if we are meeting again in late May or June. So I think there'll be some serious pressure to try to keep that on the agenda.
Senator, do you guys actually have to be in person to vote, to make a legal vote? Or
yes, we do right now. Actually, I am chair of the Rules Committee. So I was trying to work with our speaker and our clerk of the court to see if there was a way to vote to suspend rules when we were in last Wednesday. And the judgment was that it really still poses some constitutional questions. It's not just a matter of our own rules that we could change, but there's concerns about constitutional issues and interpretations in terms of being able to move to virtual voting.
thank you.
All right, does anybody else have any questions for Senator Crawford? Okay, do we have anybody here? I don't think there's anybody here from the state. Any news from Offutt?
Can you all hear me there? It's Lieutenant Colonel Hogan from Offutt.
Yeah.
Yeah, so everything's normal here. Nothing crazy happening, you know. We're just doing our thing like we always do. No, we of course have had the same kind of measures all everybody else is facing, and you know, we're in the community with you guys through this the same. So the same kind of restrictions you're seeing from the CDC, from the federal government through to the state affects us just the same. So the base is on essentially kind of a minimum manning status. So there's fewer people in the offices. I'm in my office that normally has 3 to 5 people in it by myself. So it's quiet in here. But all of our social distancing requirements are the same that you all have. And we've started to shut down some of the services on base, or limit the services on base, to try to keep the people safe and keep the spread from occurring any faster than it absolutely has to. We've implemented a system of protective measures called health protection conditions. They have 4, technically 5 conditions, just like our force protection conditions do. And we ramped up from normal to Charlie very quickly. So we are in the 3rd highest level of health protection condition, with only 1 left over, which is Delta. All of our information is made available on a web page that we designed specifically for this. And the website for that is www.offutt.af.mil/home/coronavirus. And that's updated on a regular basis. It's got all the wing commanders' postures and posts and discussions. There's lots of good videos on there. We've collated all the CDC guidance that we can, as well as Air Force guidance. There's posters on there for all of our services, what their current status is, what's required to get in and out, and then some helpful videos from all the different senior leaders in the DoD architecture, down to our installation leadership. So we've got that source of information as well. That being said, we're still recovering from the flood. So all of the programs and policies that we had in place, they're still ongoing, even despite this pandemic. And we're still looking at the runway work coming up. That is still moving along unabated right now. Right now, we're still in the policy and design portion of all the different buildings and all the runway and talking through that. As it stands right now, there's no change to any of that execution. It'll still execute as most recently briefed. So that's what we're looking at for our flood and runway projects and what we're doing with respect to the pandemic. So at this point, I'll open it up for any questions you all may have.
Do we have any questions for Offutt? All right, let's keep moving forward then. The next we have is our federal delegation. I'm not sure if anybody from Don Bacon's office or from Senator Fisher's office is on.
Vaughn had emailed me and said, I am out in Valentine having connection issues. Can you please let me know if anyone has any questions and send them to me email?
Yep.
So if you guys do have any questions for Senator Fisher's office, if you guys just want to shoot me an email at president@sarpychamber.org, I'll make sure that I share that with the group. And I think that's it right now.
Okay. The next one we have is cities. Mayor Black, did you want to go ahead and get us started?
Sure. Most everything we're doing is COVID related. I do host a daily call at 9:30. It's a multi-jurisdictional call, and that includes all of the cities. So Bellevue, Papillion, La Vista, Gretna, Springfield all participate that. Usually the mayor and the city administrator of each of the cities is on that call, and that's every day. We include Plattsmouth on that call as well. And then from the county, we have the sheriff on there, we have emergency management, we have the commissioners, and we have Bonnie Moore from the prosecutor's office. And then from each of the cities as well, the police and fire are represented on that call. And then Sarah Schramm, the Sarpy Cass health director, is on that call. So every day, mayors, administrators, public safety are all getting together across Sarpy and Cass, or Northern Cass, and we're getting a direct update from Sarah Schramm at the health department. And the main thing, the reason it started was we just realized that if each jurisdiction's doing something different, it's going to cause a lot of confusion in with the residents. And so we figured whether we make a right or a wrong decision, if we all make it together, it's going to show a little bit of unity across the governments, but it'll also remove a lot of confusion from the residents. And so that's proven to be a very fruitful call. And even if we just get a 5-minute update from Sarah, we're all committed to that call every day. Some of the actions you've recently seen, like what we're each doing with our parks, some of that was coordinated. One says they want to close their parks, the other one doesn't. We work that out in that call and try to come to some unanimous decision. And if we're not unanimous, at least we know how to communicate the differences. And then our communication folks across the cities are also coordinating. So we're trying to send a very, very, very unified message across Sarpy. And to date, I think it's worked really well. I think the biggest update we got out of this morning's call was Sarah Schramm at the health department. Well, two things. A couple of days ago, Sarpy GIS did put up a GIS map of the COVID data. To date, Sarpy County was just putting out a number, and it didn't really have any context. 2 days ago, Sarpy GIS has a map up now that is open to the public. And so you can go out there now and you can get COVID cases by age group breakdown, by gender, if they're hospitalized or not, and a number of things. I think the surprising thing to people, if they go out and look at that, about 73% of the COVID cases in Sarpy County right now are in the 25 to 49 age group, and they're male and they have not traveled. So this idea of you have to be traveling and it's an old people's disease is wrong in Sarpy. So the social distancing and the groups, it's a very real thing. And we're seeing the benefits of that. So that is a public website. You can go to Sarpy GIS and find that. And we're trying to push it out to the residents because I think the more information, the better it'll be. The other piece that came out today, there's national modeling that goes on of where COVID is and where's the curve at, and are we ahead or behind? And the portion on Nebraska, which is I think what the governor uses, that modeling, and the health departments do as well. What Sarah shared with us is based on that modeling, it shows that Nebraska's peak will probably be about May 4th. So we're still headed into the steep curve. So the next couple of weeks could still be ugly. And I think that peak called for about 13 deaths in Nebraska on that day. And that modeling assumes about a 60% compliance rate with social distancing and not being in large groups. So the more we can push that, the better. The really good thing for Nebraska in the modeling is in no case was our hospital systems overloaded as far as ICUs and ventilators. We always had some capacity. And so that's a real big positive for Nebraska right now. So that was an update from this morning's call that we all got.
Thanks for that, Mayor. Does anybody have any questions for? Okay, let's move on to La Vista then. Ron, is that there? The La Vista board? Anyway. All right, do we have any give an update? Okay, move forward then. Let's move on. Andy, do you have anything, what's happening over in Papillion and La Vista?
Thanks, Patrick. I don't think we have anything significant to report. All of our buildings are closed. They're closed minimally through April 30th, based on some conversations we've had with the governor and commissioner of education. I think the likelihood of us coming back in May is very, very slim. We're not communicating that yet. We're worried a little bit about staff morale and engagement, student morale and engagement. And my fear is if we publicly announce we're shutting it down too early, it's going to be really hard to keep our teaching and learning alive. But yeah, we're hoping that there's still some shred of the school year that we can salvage, not probably very likely. So we're starting to turn conversations to next fall and the summer, and what does that look like, and dealing with questions from everything from commencement to prom. So we're just trying to keep ahead of it a little bit, but nothing beyond that to report.
That's too bad. It's really bad for those high school kids that are finishing up their high school career, seniors this year, and then you have other kids wonder if their sports going to be around in the fall coming up when they're starting their sports with football and things like that. So it must be a pretty tough time and a lot of things that you have to deal with that a lot of people don't think about. I'll get an update really quick. We're pretty much in the same boat. We've shut down our non-credit side of the school. We're not doing any more classes on that end. On the credit side, we're still getting things wrapped up with learning. If there are students that have to go through the lab programs, things along those lines, they have to set up specific times with instructors to try to keep the social distancing working as well as possible. I haven't heard any updates about that recently. I think it's some of the emails, it's moving along just fine. But we are shut down on campus. We have essential staff on campus, dealing with everything from helping student class, financial aid, and everything else is pretty much closed off until we open back up, hopefully on April 30th. If anybody has any questions for me or Dr. Rickley, go ahead and ask them.
Hey, Pat, I think you forgot Angie Lawrenson with Gretna.
Oh, sorry. Angie, I always do that. Sorry about that. Dang it. Angie, go ahead with Gretna, please. You're not on my scroller up top, so.
Sure.
Sorry about that.
So something along the lines of what the cities have been doing. I'm obviously not invited at the really cool mayor meetings. So I started a community type meeting that we meet once a week, and it includes myself, a city administrator, and it's mostly just Gretna specific to make sure that we're handling the community of Gretna as best we possibly can. So we have Jim Warren and Superintendent Dr. Rich Barron, the food specialist with the schools, our food pantry board members are on there, law enforcement. Tomorrow we're going to have Vaughn from Senator Fisher's office. Andrew LeGrone has been joining those meetings. Who else? Lift Up Sarpy has been joining those meetings too. You know, it's just trying to make sure that the community is kind of working together, so that in case we get 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks down the road, that we have a consolidated effort to make sure that we're all kind of working together. And we've been kind of working through the numbers that the school has been providing for the amount of lunches that they've been doing. We do lunches on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and so we saw a double an increase between lunches that were requested from the first week to last week. And we've also seen an increase going into this week, where I'm a little concerned when we get into next week, when the school is on spring break and we're not offering lunches next week. So how does the community kind of step up and try to take care of those families that have been getting supplemented food from the school system? So that'll be something we'll try to work through tomorrow. I've been talking with Vaughn and with Senator LaCrone. There's not a lot that they can do, but we have a Gretna resident whose parents are on one of the ships that's down in the Caribbean. And so trying to work with the State Department on trying to get them some help and trying to get off those boats. They are healthy, so they are actually on the sister ship that was brought in to relieve the contaminated ship. But so they've been super helpful with that. I was trying to think through. Patriot Distillery, I found out came out and they visited Gretna. Our fire and EMS was completely out of hand sanitizer, so they did drop off bottles to our Gretna Rural Fire. And I believe he's going to be on tomorrow. They have limited supply of masks and gloves and PPE, basically. I think they're down to a couple of weeks worth of supply. And so we're going to try to work through tomorrow and try to help them get supplies. I've been working with emergency management with FEMA and trying to get a distribution chain line get up for them so they can get the equipment that they need to be out on calls. I think our pit parks policy, I think, is a little different than the other cities. I see that we lost Mayor Black, but we have actually closed our fields and using language saying that teams cannot practice or larger groups cannot be on those fields. And so over the weekend, there were some teams that were practicing on some of the fields. They were spaced out and everybody was, so I think common sense, they thought they were in the right and they were seen having those types of practices. And so our playgrounds are still open as of right now. And fields, soccer fields and baseball, softball fields are open to only family groups. So if it's a dad with some kids out, we're not going to tell them to get off the field, but obviously a team should not be practicing. So I think some of the language is kind of hard to get across to a lot of people. So I think that is all that I have.
Sorry again for missing. It'll never happen again till next month. Anyway, let's see, Sarpy County. Fred, is there anything happening in Sarpy County?
Well, being out here in Werner Park, I'm a little bit out of the flow on too much county stuff. I know we had a department head conference call today, and actually our jail population's down, so maybe I might be the only bright silver lining to this cloud we're all under. Tourism industry, the tourism hospitality is probably the industry taking the biggest hit. We've been contacting our hotels. Angie, I hope you got the swim trial stuff in. And good girl. And so we're working with our properties trying to salvage the swim trials for 2021. It's been a challenge and some other events I'm working with on, like in 22 and 23, that a lot of the salespeople have been furloughed. So it's kind of nice to have Angie to bounce ideas off of. We are looking at attempting to do some events here at Werner Park, perhaps a fireworks show. We're working through some of the issues where people would still have to be in their vehicles and stuff, but possibility, or maybe even a baseball carry-out meal or whatever. I know a lot of our restaurants seem to be doing quite well. Some of them have waiting lines of 2 to 3 hours when you try to get carry-out. Unfortunately, the hotel side of our industry can't do a carry-out room or curbside room, so a lot of issues going on there. But I did send a thing to the chambers and business associations across the county today. I know Cox Media is doing free advertising for restaurants. So if you know people that have a restaurant, please have them get in touch with Cox Media group. I think everyone's just trying to keep their doors open, and hopefully this will pass. So, it's Census Day too. So hopefully this group of leaders on this group, probably everyone's already filled out their census, but if you have not, please do so before you leave your computer.
Can I just say something regarding tourism?
Go ahead.
So about 10 hotels in the metro have actually closed, and we're pretty lucky in Sarpy that the majority of ours are still up and running and everything. But hats off to Fred and his team. I mean, they still come in every day. there's been so many groups, I mean, throughout June that are looking for new dates, either later in the year or even next year, that it's just so uncertain. We're down to one housekeeper at my hotel and Papillion. I think I have like one desk clerk, the leadership's there. We're a limited breakfast. And I mean, even the little things like, every hotel has that breakfast buffet. What's that gonna look like now moving forward after this is all complete? And so, yeah, thanks, Fred. Thanks to you, Alex, and everybody with your staff for continuing to reach out. I can tell you I have hotels in other communities and they don't reach out like you guys have been. So thank you.
Thanks. We're just, it's tough selling a product, but you don't have too much to sell lately. I mean, our community calendar is getting pretty barren. Thank God for the, thank God for the food trucks at the brew pubs.
All right, is that it, Fred? All right, is there any questions for Sarpy? No? Okay, then, are there any other, is there anybody from MAPA or the Sarpy County Economic Development Corp on the call?
No, but who is that back there in La Vista? It looks like Ron with his arms crossed. Is he not talking? Oh, here he goes. Ron.
That's Tom with Unico Group.
Oh, hey, Tom.
Oh, Tom, there's Tom, all right.
Yeah, my name doesn't come across there, it just says La Vista Boardroom.
Yeah, we thought it was La Vista. Tricked us, nice one. Vice Chair.
I have this big, huge office and hardly anybody here.
All right, do you have anybody else from any other of the other chambers from Gretna or Millard or any other groups? All right. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to bring up before we adjourn?
Yeah, I didn't know when to pipe in, but this is Mark Obermeyer with CBRE Commercial Real Estate. I just wanted to, we're dealing with a lot of landlords and tenants issues with tenants having to close, small mom and pops wondering if they can pay the rent, talking to landlords about how they're going to move forward here. And it's definitely new territory. So if you are talking to somebody and they just need somebody to talk to, I'm happy to talk to them on kind of what the national scene is going on. And it is kind of a case-by-case basis, center by center, building by building, and tenant by tenant, as far as how landlords are working with tenants, how the banks are working with landlords as far as paying their mortgages if the tenants aren't paying them. So it's an interesting situation. Hopefully we can work through this quickly, but we're on the call, or we're on calls all day trying to figure out how to move forward here, how tenants can stay in business, and even if they do have to close for a little while here, that they can landlords can keep their tenants in the long run. So it's a crazy world.
Hey, Mark, can you tell me what is what are you hearing specific to retail? So, or are you hearing anything from specific the retail stores?
Yeah, we do lease and manage a lot of centers for owners in the metro, and again, nail shops have had to close, hair salons, bar and grills have had to close. Yes, they can do carry out, but in most cases, they're not. The income's not nearly what it was. So some landlords are willing to work with those tenants, some are not. Which I think in the long run here, if the landlords will work with tenants on either deferring some rent or partial deferments, or extending the lease but working with the tenant in the short term here, that's going to go a long ways. But it is tough. We manage several centers where say half a dozen tenants in each center are having to close, and that is tough.
Well, a lot of these landlords still have to pay their bill to the bank. So are you seeing them apply for some of these SBA special loans, or are you on that side of it?
Yeah, a lot of them are having to. A lot of the lenders, I would say kudos to the local lenders, local banks seem to be willing to work with landlords here through this, whether it's deferring payments for a month or two, going interest only for a month or two here until things get figured out. But if you've got these big, they call it CMBS mortgages, but Wall Street type mortgages, those guys that's not somebody you can really call up and negotiate your deal. So we'll see what happens here in the long run. Again, hopefully it doesn't last more than a month or two, but you know, small tenants are scared, and justifiably so.
Great information, Mark. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Karen,
Yes.
do you have information on the bridge loans and the other small business loans that are available right now, and the one that are forgivable small business loans that are available now? Is that on your website?
You sent me some information, I believe it was last week, and we did share some of that. If you can send me any of the most updated, everything changes every day. If you can send me what's the most updated information, I'd love it. We try to stay on top of it, but it's really hard.
Right.
Yeah, so if you could shoot that to me, we'll make sure we'll get that updated. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right.
I just wanted to make sure people know that there are possible resources for those loans, and that some of the loans are forgivable loans. So I know people might be worried about getting further in debt, but some of the loans are, at least part of them are forgivable. So people might talk to their lender and check the Small Business Administration webpage for more information.
All right. Does anybody have any further questions for anybody, or anything else they'd like to bring up before we adjourn?
Thanks.
All right, then. Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you next month. And everybody be safe and take care of each other and keep practicing social distancing. We're better off for it. All right, everybody. Thanks for showing up today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.